Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up in today's newscast. Prime Minister Netanyahu heads to the front lines in Gaza to meet with and support IDF forces. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff issues contradictory statements on U.S. demands in Iran nuclear talks. U.S. administration cracks down on universities, failing to fight Jew hatred, with Harvard losing $2.2 billion. Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Katz, and Chief of Staff Zamir were all in Gaza visiting troops in the north of the enclave for a battlefield assessment of the war and its possible expansion until war goals are achieved. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The battlefield visit by the Prime Minister and Defense Minister came as IDF troops continue to expand control of territory in northern and southern Gaza, in an effort to pressure Hamas to accept Israeli demands for the release of all hostages. Holding a printout of a post by Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, Netanyahu said the Iranian leader was again calling for Israel's destruction. Standing alongside Netanyahu, Katz said, "The more Hamas refuses to release our hostages, the more Israel will intensify its blows." IDF Chief of Staff Zamir was in Gaza, where he made a point of declaring that the army will not allow political division to infiltrate the IDF. While conducting a situational assessment of the ongoing war, Zamir said the IDF will continue to operate as a national institution and will not allow internal disagreements to infiltrate its ranks. Referring to recent letters that were published by groups of Army reservists in recent days, Zamir said, "Reservists have the right to express their opinions when not on active duty as civilians on any topic and in a democratic manner. There are plenty of ways and platforms for civilian protest. The attempt to drag the army into this, including speaking as a group in the name of a military unit, is unacceptable and will not be allowed."
This Saturday, the second round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran is set to take place in Muscat. But there's already been significant confusion over U.S. demands due to contradictory statements of U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff. Let's take a closer look. After a controversial interview with U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, in which he stated that the U.S. seeks to limit Iran's uranium enrichment to 3.67%, 70% of the enrichment level needed for a bomb, the U.S. administration appears to be backtracking. Witkoff is now claiming the policy is complete elimination of uranium enrichment and weaponization programs, contradicting his earlier statements about accepting 3.67% enrichment, the level set by the 2015 nuclear agreement. Critics argue that the proposed deal could allow Iran to maintain a rapid breakout capability, enabling it to develop a nuclear weapon in a short time frame. They also contend that the regime is using negotiations to buy time until President Trump leaves office without making meaningful concessions. While Witkoff has emphasized the need for full access for international inspectors, the current proposals do not address Iran's funding of terrorist activities through its regional proxies. This omission has raised concerns amongst observers who believe that any comprehensive agreement should also curb Iran's destabilizing actions in the Middle East. The U.S. position remains unclear due to Witkoff's conflicting statements. As negotiations continue this weekend in Oman, the international community watches closely to see whether a consistent and effective strategy will emerge. And now joining us to break down these nuclear talks as well as what the U.S. position should be is Jonathan Schanzer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you on. Can you explain what exactly is going on in the White House right now with Steve Witkoff? I mean, first he states the standard is what the JCPOA set forth under Obama. Now a somewhat murky reversal. What's going on here?
Well, I think, Emily, the long and short of it is that Stephen Witkoff is learning the file in real time. We're watching him climb the very steep learning curve of the Iranian nuclear file, and it is not an easy thing for someone to learn overnight. I don't believe there are any technical experts right now on his team. We know that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, who's been following this file for decades, is not included in this team. And right now, I think we're looking at an envoy office that is still maybe not as robust as maybe it could be. But the timing is the timing here, right? We've got a massive amount of American firepower in the region. That's the leverage that we have right now over the Iranians. They know that their air defenses are down. They know that there are 2 carrier strike groups off the coast of Iran as we speak. There are B-2 bombers in on the island of Diego Garcia. There are THAAD missile defense batteries supplied by the United States in Israel to make sure that there's defensive coverage in the event that Iran decides to go for a counterattack. So right now, there's a lot of pressure on the Iranians. They know it, and Stephen Witkoff does not have the luxury of learning the file over the course of several weeks. Donald Trump is asking him to negotiate this now, and we're going to see some revisions along the way, and that is definitely spooking a lot of the critics right now in Washington and in Israel.
Let's hope that it's that he learns everything in time. Can you explain a little bit about what this 3.67% enrichment means? Why is it dangerous?
Well, anytime you're going to allow for enriching uranium on the part of the Iranians, what you're basically saying is that they're allowed to have a program. And that's what we need to stop, right? This is, and we've heard people talk about this, the Libya model. The Libya model is the gold standard as far as the U.S. and as far as the Israelis are concerned. That's, if you recall what happened back in 2003, the United States went in and invaded Iraq. Vanquished the army of Saddam Hussein, and this spooked Muammar Gaddafi, the former dictator of Libya, and he basically agreed to fully relinquish his nascent nuclear program. He gave up all of it. He said, I will not enrich. I won't engage in weaponization. I won't engage in anything. And that's exactly what I think the Israelis want. It's what the United States should be demanding. It's what Stephen Witkoff should have called for at first. I think the statement that he issued wasn't a full endorsement of that 3.67%, but it left the door open. And that's, I think, the mistake. You had people saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? I thought Donald Trump was opposed to the JCPOA, that 2015 very flawed nuclear deal. And I think as soon as Donald Trump heard that, at least this is my perception, he went back to Witkoff and said, wait a minute, that's not what I want. That's not what I endorse. We're going for zero enrichment here, and that explains the reversal of Stephen Witkoff in a very public way. Like I said, he's learning the file. He's revising some of his statements. At the end of the day, the guy does answer to Donald Trump, and I think that is, in the end, a good thing.
Now, President Trump has repeated verified nuclear deals several times. What are these verification methods that he has in mind? I mean, have we seen this before? How can Trump ensure that even after 4 years that the regime wouldn't make a bomb?
Look, what you want is you want verification of the destruction of these facilities, Natanz, Fordo, et cetera. You need to see inspectors coming in. So that's the International Atomic Energy Association, the IAEA. Maybe you have U.S. weapons inspectors. But this, I mean, look, the thing that kills me about all of these nuclear talks, and we've seen this over time, and I've talked to some of the Israeli negotiators over the years, some of the American negotiators over the years, it gets too complicated, right? You've got sunset clauses and you've got snapback sanctions and all these technical things that we have created. They're far more complicated than they need to be. Either Iran destroys its nuclear program and agrees to never do it again, or we have a problem. The political window for all this negotiation here in the United States, this is while it's open here. So what we need is we need to put the knife to the throat of the Iranians, make them understand that they have one choice if they want their regime to survive, and then we get to call the shots in terms of how all of this is monitored. That's the way this should work when you have the leverage that right now the United States has, thanks in large part to what the Israelis did in the skies over Iran last fall.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but let's hope that the U.S. administration gets their ducks in a row when it comes to dealing with the Islamic Republic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan Schanzer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Pleasure.
Former hostage Elia Cohen joined thousands of people at the Kotel in Jerusalem for the special priestly blessing during the holiday of Passover. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the story and details you need to know about the ongoing hostage negotiations.
In a powerful and emotional moment at the Western Wall, known as the Kotel in Jerusalem, released hostage Elia Cohen prays for the release of the remaining hostages during one of Judaism's holiest prayers, called Birkat Kohanim. It was Cohen's first time back to the Kotel since he was released during the ceasefire deal after he was held in Gaza for almost 500 days. His mother told Channel 12 in Israel she was at the Kotel exactly 1 year ago to the day, praying for Cohen's release. Tens of thousands of people attended the holy service where the priestly blessing by the Kohanim takes place 2 times during Passover at the Kotel. Thousands of men wrap themselves in white shawls or talits, and the Kohanim bless the people of Israel. They use the same words God commanded the priests according to the Torah. Hundreds of people held up posters of the hostages, praying for their safe passage home. As Israelis pray for a miracle, reality turns to negotiations, which reveals Hamas rejected a new Israeli ceasefire proposal, according to reports. Hamas is insisting the proposal includes a promise to end the conflict, but no requirement for the terror group to disarm themselves. Israeli bombardments and ground offensive expands in Gaza as they secure new buffer and security zones, according to the IDF. Hamas now claims a direct Israeli airstrike resulted in the loss of contact with U.S. citizen Idan Alexander's captors. The terror group claims, quote, "We are trying to reach them." Alexander appeared in a second propaganda video on Saturday where he was in emotional distress begging for his release. The IDF has not confirmed any of Hamas's claims. And Emily, to end this on a positive note, the story I'm about to tell you is just a miracle. There were troops from the Golani Brigade operating deep inside of Rafah last week when they noticed this white little dog coming out of the rubble. They said that this dog approached them. They believe it was likely because of the Hebrew they were speaking, and one reservist insisted on taking care of it for the next 4 days. That reservist ended up bringing it back to Israel, had Passover with that dog, and eventually brought it to the vet for more treatment. The vet was able to scan a microchip inside of it and was able to determine who its owner actually was, which was Rachel Danzig. Rachel Danzig lived on Kibbutz Nir Oz. That dog was clearly kidnapped on October 7th. Now, Rachel Danzig's ex-husband was actually kidnapped into Gaza on October 7th, and he was murdered while in captivity there. This family says it is a miracle this dog is alive. It will be reunited with its family today. Emily?
The suspect in the arson at the Pennsylvania governor's home targeting Josh Shapiro was motivated by the governor's views on the war in Gaza. Cody Ballmer, the man accused of setting fire to the Shapiro's residence, reportedly told emergency service operators that he targeted the governor in part because of his pro-Israel views. The warrant said Ballmer called 911 hours after setting the fire and said Shapiro needs to know that he will not take part in his plans for what he wants to do to the Palestinian people. Shapiro is Jewish, and hours before the arson attack, his family and friends gathered in the residence to celebrate their Passover Seder. The room where the Seder was held was badly damaged in the blaze. Palmer reportedly told police that he intended to hit Shapiro with a hammer if he was confronted inside the house. Law enforcement has yet to declare that Ballmer was motivated by hate or anti-Semitism formally. In a bold move to combat campus anti-Semitism, President Donald Trump has frozen over $2.2 billion in federal funding to Harvard University and threatened to revoke its tax-exempt status. This action follows Harvard's refusal to implement administration demands aimed at addressing anti-Semitism on campus. The administration's demands included audits of academic programs, reforms to admissions and hiring practices to ensure merit-based selection, and measures to protect Jewish students from discrimination. Harvard President Alan Garber rejected the demand, citing concerns over academic freedom and institutional autonomy. President Trump defended the funding freeze, stating that taxpayer dollars should not support institutions that fail to uphold civil rights laws and combat anti-Semitism. Other universities have also faced funding cuts over similar issues. Columbia University had $400 million in federal grants and contracts canceled due to the alleged failure to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitic harassment on campus. Cornell University saw a freeze of $1 billion, Northwestern University $790 million, and Brown University $510 million. Princeton University and the University of Pennsylvania have also faced funding cuts. The administration has also taken action against students involved in pro-Hamas activism, with over 800 students and more than 120 colleges have had their visas revoked or legal status terminated in recent weeks. These actions are part of a broader effort to address terror support on campus. As the situation develops, the administration remains firm in its position that compliance with federal civil rights obligations is non-negotiable for recipients of government funding. And this Passover, turn your love for Israel into meaningful action. ILTV is proud to partner with Blessed by Israel, a company that brings you one-of-a-kind handcrafted products made by the pioneers of Judea and Samaria. As we celebrate Passover, a time of freedom, renewal, and new beginnings, there's no better moment to support those building a brighter future in Israel's heartland. Every purchase helps strengthen their communities and keeps the spirit of resilience alive. Let's take a closer look at Blessed by Israel and discover how you can really make a difference today.
As the world moves to boycott Israel, the people working to restore life to the biblical heartland face daily challenges. Blessed by Israel offers a simple way to support these efforts by bringing unique and beautiful products from Judea and Samaria directly to you. From the hilltops of God's land to your home, you can find exceptional items crafted by families and small businesses in the heart of Israel. With U.S.-based warehouses, Blessed by Israel ensures affordable prices and fast delivery. Choose from a range of products, including skincare, artisan flowers and foods, olive oil, tahini, honey, and much more. There are many great options for giving wonderful gifts to your loved ones. Visit blessedbyisrael.com to explore these products and discover the inspiring stories behind them. Scan the QR code on your screen to take part in fulfilling God's prophecies.
Israel 365 Action is running in the upcoming World Zionist Congress elections, known as the Parliament of the Jewish People. Held every 5 years, these elections help determine how nearly $1 billion is allocated to support Israel and Jewish communities around the world. The Israel 365 Action slate is focused on reinforcing Zionist values, stopping the push for a Palestinian state, strengthening the bond between Jews and Christians, and defending Judea and Samaria, especially in the wake of October 7th. With us now in studio today to share more about their platform are Tila Falek, the lead candidate on the Israel 365 Action slate, and Rabbi Pesach Woliki, the slate spokesperson. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the elections that are taking place now, what are these elections and why are they so important? I'd like to start with you.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, there's an annual allocation of $1 billion of Jewish communal funds that gets distributed for Zionist education, Zionist programming, and all sorts of projects in Israel every year. So it's $5 billion for every 5-year election cycle. It's a lot of money on the line. And this money, when I say it's the Jewish people's money, these are funds that are generated by the assets of the Jewish people, our grandparents and great-grandparents who went around collecting money in tzedakah boxes in order to build this nation and purchase the land that became the state of Israel, set up these institutions, and it's still from those assets that this money is generated. And for far too long, the World Zionist Congress, because of the constitution of it, with different legacy organizations and all the Jewish communities worldwide participating in these elections, has been slanted to the left. And especially after October 7th, we see it as such a critically important thing to turn this around. Most Jews don't know how important these elections are. They think it's just some Jewish organizations getting together in a room and passing resolutions.
Now, Tila, what is the Israel 365 Action slate? What do you guys stand for? What makes it different from the other parties that are running?
I think that we're the only one, as far as I know, that is openly calling for sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. And the idea is not just for it to be recognized, but also to promote the values of the biblical homeland and support the communities that are already there and to help them expand and strengthen the communities of Yehuda v'Shomron, Judea and Samaria, in a way that all Jews are involved in the building and expansion of these beautiful communities.
And why was this such an important position to take for this slate, for the party?
Well, you know, we had an event in Washington, D.C. a number of months ago, and, you know, for Judea and Samaria, where we brought together a few hundred Christian and Jewish leaders, you know, to speak out against the calls for a Palestinian state and on behalf of sovereignty. And there was a reporter there from Reuters who asked me, you know, he said to me, why are you so focused on Judea and Samaria? And I said, one of the lessons we have to learn from October 7th, but really from Zionism in general and the direction the Jewish community has taken, is that if we don't have ancestral historical rights to Hebron and Beit Lechem and Shiloh, then we don't have rights to Haifa and Tel Aviv either.
Now, Tila, your tagline on this campaign is vote to stop a Palestinian state. Why is this such a core component? I know you spoke a little bit about it, but if you could elaborate more on why this is a core component of the platform for this party.
So historically, there's already been different attempts for a Palestinian state. In 1947, the UN partition plan called for Jordan for the Palestinians, or Arabs at the time, and Israel was for the Jews. It doesn't mean that one shouldn't be able to live in the other, which when you call for a two-state solution today, it actually disqualifies the ability of Jews to be able to live in the Palestinian side. But we have 2 million Arabs, I believe, that live in Israel, that are citizens of Israel with all kinds of rights within Israel. So we've tried this already with Jordan and Israel. We also tried it again with the Gaza disengagement, where we tried to give the Palestinians a land, and that didn't turn out so well, not for them and not for us. So in reality, if we care about the safety of Jews and we care about actually the safety of Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, and to be able to give access to the Christians to the holy sites and all religions to be able to get to their holy sites, it could only be under one Jewish state, and that's Israel, because under Israel, everybody can flourish with whatever it is that they believe in, and real coexistence comes through living together, not by separating people.
You know, you bring up an interesting point about access to holy sites, and in fact, Christians and Jews are prohibited from some of the religious sites, even under Israeli control, when we're looking at Al-Aqsa, the Temple Mount, for example. One of the things that you guys focus on in this platform is enhancing Jewish-Christian relations. Why was that a core component of this platform for you guys as well, Pesach?
Well, especially since October 7th, but it's really been for the last 4 decades or so, it's become very clear that our only truly steadfast friends who aren't just in this for some temporary transactional, you know, realpolitik reason, but our only true friends of Israel are Bible-believing Christians who see the state of Israel the same way Bible-believing Jews see the state of Israel, as the fulfillment of the long-awaited return of the nation of Israel to our homeland after thousands of years of exile. And those Christians stand with us firmly. And for far too long, the Zionist establishment has been very uneasy about evangelical Christians. They kind of keep them at arm's length because so many of the Jews in leadership positions lean to the left and lean to progressive politics, and they're uncomfortable with them, or they have some invented fantasy about why Christians support Israel, which I tell you, as someone who's been involved in Jewish-Christian relations for many, many years, it's news to Christians when I tell them, you know, all the weird reasons that Jews think that they support Israel. They support Israel very simply because they say, oh, God fulfills his promises. The Jewish people are returning to their land. It turns out that they still do have a covenant with God, and they will be with us long term.
All right, Tila, we're unfortunately out of time, but before I let you guys go, I want to know how our viewers can support you. How can they learn more about this slate, and how can they vote?
It's actually very simple. There will be a QR code at the end of this report, but you can go on Israel365action.org.com, and vote. Vote in the World Zionist Congress. This is a very important election for everybody. We're going to allocate funds for all, and at the end of the day, if we see where the Trump administration is leading and where they are looking for their next big decisions to be, it will be in Judea and Samaria. So let's get on board, and everybody vote for Israel Action 365.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Tila Falek and Rabbi Pesach Oleki. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of around 13 degrees Celsius or 56 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see partly cloudy skies alongside warm temperatures, seeing highs of 27 degrees Celsius or 81 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, happy Passover, and thank you for watching.